My name was Omar. I was a Quran teacher, a respected figure in my community, a keeper of traditions that shaped our daily lives in a small town in southern Egypt. For years, I stood before my students, instilling in them the teachings I had devoted my life to, believing I was guiding them toward the light. But beneath the surface of my meticulous routines, a void simmered, a chasm of despair that whispered doubts in the silence of my prayers. I thought I was blessed. I believed I was strong. Until the moment when everything changed, and I found myself staring into the abyss. One fateful night, in a shroud of darkness after a serious car crash, I slipped into unconsciousness. What came next was more than mere visions. It was an encounter that shattered my reality. I found myself in an eternal desert, a vast emptiness stretching into infinity. There, a figure emerged, radiant and powerful, a presence that pierced through my spirit. It was Jesus. Underneath the weight of his gaze, I felt a revelation unfold, a warning of the spiritual chains that bound me, forged by the very traditions I held dear. As I stood face to face with the truth, I realized the unseen battle that raged around me. This was not merely a personal journey. It was a call to arms against the systemic oppression veiled by the doctrines I was taught to uphold. Jesus confronted the very roots of my faith, offering a glimpse of freedom that I had never known, a liberation from the fears that confined my heart. My spirit stirred, igniting a fire of urgency within me, a realization that the truth was meant to be shared, not hidden. Then I awoke, but I was not the same. The struggle that followed was relentless. Friends and family turned their backs on me, angered by the revelation that seemed to shatter the very foundations of their beliefs. The weight of betrayal hung heavily around my neck like a noose, but deep down, an unwavering desire to seek and share this newfound truth grew stronger each day. In secret, I began to search, to uncover the words of hope and redemption that resided within the pages of the Bible. I listened to testimonies of others who had traveled this perilous path, each story a beacon guiding me toward the light. It was through prayer, real, desperate prayer, that I surrendered my life to Jesus, my heart finally bathed in the love I had been searching for. Today, I stand here, a messenger of the awakening I experienced, an awakening I believe is sparking within souls across the globe. This journey is not just my own. It is a movement laced with the promise of liberation from spiritual bondage, calling all to transcend what they think they know. Join me, and together let's peel back the layers of deception that shroud our perceptions of truth. Before we dive deeper, tell me, where are you watching from, and what time is it right now? I want to connect with you, because reaching across these distances reminds us how powerful this journey can be. And if you love Jesus, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. You won't want to miss the revelations that are unfolding, truths that could change your life forever. In the small town of southern Egypt where I grew up, life revolved around the intricate dance of tradition and faith. Our community, steeped in Islamic culture, thrived under the weight of unwavering religious practices. We were taught to respect the teachings handed down through generations, as if they were sacred threads weaving our identities. Every morning began with the call to prayer, a reminder of our duties and a greeting to the divine. Yet beneath this veneer of devotion lay a subtle yearning, a quiet whisper for freedom that few dared to voice. It was an existence filled with reverence, but also shadows of doubt, laying the foundation for the turmoil within me. As a professor, I devoted my life to teaching, committed to instilling the values I held dear. Yet increasingly, I found myself wrestling silently with the rigidity of those beliefs. There was a growing sense of emptiness that accompanied each lesson I delivered, a void that seemed to mock the very essence of my faith. I was adept at navigating the halls of academia, where respect was given based on adherence to tradition, but inside, I felt like a prisoner to my own convictions. I knew that the spiritual war within me was escalating, evoking a hunger for understanding that could no longer be ignored. Then came the pivotal moment that would change everything. A sudden illness swept through my life, leaving me bedridden and isolated. As I lay there teetering on the brink of existence, my mind was flooded with clarity. Time lost its meaning, and in those fleeting moments between consciousness and oblivion, I encountered Jesus. The vision unfolded brilliantly, a light so pure it pierced through the shadows of my despair. Every question I had long suppressed formed words that hung in the sacred air, waiting for answers. In those moments, Jesus revealed truths hidden beneath layers of deception that wrapped our society and beliefs. I saw the patterns of control wielded by the elite, using fear to manipulate and divide us, perpetuating a cycle that sustained their power. The revelation was staggering. I witnessed the consequences of this spiritual war enforcing silent submission, allowing the powerful to thrive at the expense of the vulnerable. I felt a profound urgency wash over me, a calling to awaken, to confront the lies that had shackled countless souls like mine. Jesus offered a path toward liberation, toward an understanding of faith that embraced love over fear, connection over dogma. As the vision faded, I returned to consciousness, heart racing and breathless with realization. I was filled with both hope and apprehension, a duality that threatened to overwhelm me. The moment was a turning point, but what lay ahead was fraught with uncertainty. I knew I could no longer adhere blindly to the community's expectations. I needed to explore this new truth that had been unveiled. The aching dilemma remained. How could I convey the awakening I had experienced? How could I challenge the carefully woven fabric of tradition that defined my existence without facing the wrath of those I held dear? The stakes felt immeasurable, but the urgency to break free from deception pressed upon my soul, urging me onward into an unknown future where the promise of truth awaited. As a Quran teacher in my community, I've always been viewed with respect and reverence. At 34, my life was constructed around the tenets of Islam, and I prided myself on my adherence to religious practices. The applause I received from my students and peers felt gratifying, and yet, deep within me, a profound emotional void gnawed at my spirit. Despite the piety I exhibited to the outside world, inside, I wrestled with feelings of anguish that I couldn't articulate. I often stood before my class, preaching about faith and devotion while grappling with a relentless sense of despair. My heart felt heavy, burdened by the weight of unspoken doubts that my esteemed position in society demanded I suppress. The most alarming aspect of my life was the dichotomy between my role and my reality. While I passionately taught others about the principles that governed our faith, I felt more like a performer in a play, reciting lines I had memorized but didn't fully believe. The deeper questions about my faith and the rigidity of our traditions haunted me. What lay beyond the doctrines I had been taught? Was there a deeper truth hidden beneath the surface? The more I sought answers, the more elusive they became, thrusting me deeper into this spiritual war within myself, a struggle that left me feeling increasingly isolated and misunderstood. Then, everything changed one fateful night. I found myself unexpectedly ill, a sudden illness that left me unable to move, trapped within the confines of my own body. In this vulnerable state, I was thrown into an otherworldly experience that blurred the lines between this life and the next. I felt as though I was being pulled into a void, and in that dark expanse, I encountered a blinding light. It was here that I met Jesus. His presence was overwhelming, radiating a love and acceptance I had never known. As he reached out to me, I felt enveloped in warmth, a stark contrast to the coldness I often felt in my heart. In this divine encounter, Jesus began to reveal hidden truths to me. I could see the web of deception woven into the fabric of our society, orchestrated by the elite who sought to control the narrative of our lives. I witnessed how manipulation and fear divided us, creating a false sense of security while fostering discord among our people. The revelation was jarring. I understood that our spiritual conflicts were more than personal struggles. They were part of a broader spiritual war being fought across the globe. Jesus made it clear that the truths we cling to belong to a broken system designed to keep us compliant. The awakening was overwhelming, yet it filled me with hope and a sense of purpose. As the vision unfolded, I saw the ramifications of choosing to ignore these truths. Wars erupting not just from geographical struggle, but from the inability to see our shared humanity. Technology, while a source of connection, was also a tool wielded by those intent on sowing division and fostering division within our communities. It was a sobering realization, and it struck me deeply how easily we could turn on each other, distracted by the machinations of those in power. This was not simply a philosophical debate, this was a call to action. The spiritual awakening I experienced demanded more than introspection. It urged me to stand against the societal structures that perpetuated deception and fear. As I returned to consciousness, breathless and trembling, I realized that my life had been irrevocably altered. I was aware now, burdened yet liberated, caught in the grip of a new understanding that could no longer be ignored. I had glimpsed the truth, and with that came an urgent responsibility to share what I had learned. But how could I confront my community with these revelations? How could I risk everything, my position, my family, my very identity, when fear of rejection loomed large? The stakes were monumental, yet the light of Jesus still shone brightly in my heart, a beacon guiding me toward the path I must tread, fraught with uncertainty, yet filled with promise. As I stood in quiet prayer, a disquieting emptiness began to settle in my heart. The rituals that once brought comfort felt increasingly hollow, like shadows without substance. I tried to push those thoughts aside, convincing myself that every faithful act was a step toward piety. But in the stillness of my solitary moments, I couldn't shake the sensation of something missing, as if a piece of my soul was slipping through my fingers. The doctrines I had adhered to so stringently suddenly felt oppressive, like shackles weighing me down. As a Quran teacher, the expectations of my community loomed large, but each day, my spirit felt more constricted under their demands. It was the dreams that began to trouble me, unsettling visions that erupted with vivid clarity, shaking my core. In these dreams, I felt lost in a vast wilderness, surrounded by shadows that whispered thoughts of doubt and fear. During daylight, those thoughts festered like a disease in my mind. I began to question everything I had been taught. Was I merely a pawn in a greater game? The very essence of my religion started to appear as a tool wielded by those in power, the elite, to control and manipulate the masses. Each dream felt eerily prophetic, leaving me rattled, awakening in the night with the echoes of their truths resonating in my mind. The internal conflict intensified, each prayer becoming a battleground where my devotion clashed against my burgeoning skepticism. As much as I tried to immerse myself in piety, the emptiness lingered like a specter at my side. I could feel the walls closing in, a fierce tension developing between what I had always known and the unsettling truth I could no longer ignore. It was as if I was on the precipice of an awakening, teetering between faith and doubt, struggling to regain balance in a world that felt increasingly chaotic. The more I questioned, the more isolated I felt, as though I was walking a solitary path amidst a sea of unquestioning disciples. It was then that I encountered Jesus in a vision, a moment that would irrevocably change my life. In that sacred encounter, I was consumed by a light so powerful that it pierced through my darkness. The warmth of his presence engulfed me, and for the first time I felt truly seen. He spoke without words, revealing the hidden agendas that festered beneath the surface of society, illuminating the manipulations employed by the elite to divide and conquer. I saw the mechanisms of control showcased in stark, vivid detail. Wars fought not for liberation but for power. Human lives lost in a deadly game of greed disguised as righteousness. As my spirit soared amidst this divine revelation, I also felt a profound sense of urgency. Jesus conveyed the truth of the spiritual war that raged not only around me but also within me. I gasped at the clarity that unfolded, a call to awaken, to rouse those who slept in the shadows of deception. The urgency of this revelation struck me as both a privilege and a burden. The truth, once revealed, demanded action. My heart raced as I realized the implications of this knowledge. It wasn't merely an insight for personal transformation. It was a battle cry to challenge the status quo, to question the narratives we had been fed. In that moment of divine clarity, a realization crystallized within me. My life could no longer be tethered to a community that thrived on the darkness of ignorance. With this awakening came the responsibility to share the very light I had received. I felt both exhilarated and terrified, poised at the edge of a new beginning. The path ahead was riddled with uncertainty, fraught with potential rejection from those I loved. But the truth had ignited within me a fire I could not extinguish, urging me forward into the unknown, believing that there were others waiting to hear the message of hope I had encountered. How many more were trapped in the same deception? How many would be willing to join me in this fight for truth and awakening? The answers lay ahead, shrouded in the shadows of tomorrow. That fateful night began like any other, but it quickly transformed into something I could never have anticipated. As I drove home from an evening at the mosque, my mind was heavy with the responsibilities and expectations that weighed so intricately on my shoulders as a Quran teacher. The roads were dark, cloaked in shadows, and my thoughts vacillated between prayers for guidance and worries about meeting the community's demands. Suddenly, a flash of lights and the screeching of tires shattered the stillness. In an instant, my world turned upside down as everything faded to black. When consciousness returned, I found myself enveloped in a vast, endless desert, an expanse of sand stretching infinitely before me. It felt surreal, as if I had slipped beyond the veil of reality itself. The air was thick, charged with an energy I couldn't comprehend. Distant shadows danced at the edges of my vision, but I felt no fear, only an overwhelming sense of calm. It was in this desolation that I first saw it, the blinding light that cut through the darkness. It was a light unlike anything I'd ever encountered, warm yet fierce, beckoning me closer. Deep down, I knew this was a moment of revelation, a doorway to truths long hidden from me. As the light grew brighter, the figure emerged before me, Jesus. He stood there, radiating love and compassion, and as I gazed upon him, I could sense his deep understanding of my struggles. Omar. He called my name, and the sound reverberated through the vast desert. My heart raced with recognition and awe. I felt both small and significant in his presence, and I was overwhelmed by the purpose I could almost grasp. It was then that Jesus began to impart truths that would reshape my understanding of life and faith. He spoke of the spiritual war raging in the hearts of men and women, an unseen battle where deception stood, pitted against truth. With each word, I realized how blind I had been to the hidden agenda that manipulated our lives and beliefs. Jesus illuminated the elite's control over the narrative of faith, revealing how our communities were often led to maintain chains cloaked in the guise of tradition. I witnessed visions of conflict and division sown by powerful individuals, their hunger for authority fostering chaos and a sense of disconnection among the faithful. Each revelation echoed like a drumbeat in my soul, a call to awaken from the slumber of complacency that had gripped so many around me. As I began to comprehend the significance of what was being shown to me, an urgency pulsed through my spirit. I felt the weight of responsibility to share this awakening with others, to rally those lost in deception and guide them toward the truth. Jesus' presence addressed not only my personal struggles, but also the broader issues facing humanity. The wars that were fought not just on battlefields, but within our own hearts. It was a reminder that we possess the power to choose awakening over inertia and love over fear. But we must first recognize the forces that seek to ensnare us. The visions intensified, revealing the stakes of this spiritual war. I could see the walls of division among our people, each one erected by falsehoods that dictated how we viewed one another. It was haunting, yet liberating, this understanding of our collective struggle. In that moment, I realized it wasn't just about my awakening. It was a summons for a movement, a call for others to transcend the boundaries imposed on us. But just as the knowledge flooded in, I felt the tension creep back into my consciousness, the familiarity of my life threatening to pull me back. What awaited me when I returned to the waking world? Would I have the strength to confront the admiration I had long cultivated while challenging the very foundations of my faith? The answers lay ahead, shrouded in the uncertainty of a journey that had only just begun. Upon awakening from my coma, my world felt irrevocably altered. The brightness of the hospital room was jarring after the profound darkness I had experienced in the desert of my vision. I thought I had returned to my life, yet a gnawing turmoil festered within me. The overwhelming love I had encountered through Jesus was now shadowed by fear. Fear of recognition, fear of rejection, and fear of betrayal. I understood that the truth I had glimpsed could not be easily integrated into the world I once knew. I felt like a foreigner in my own life, struggling to reconcile my transformative experience with the expectations of my community. As I began to share the essence of my awakening with family and friends, the response was anything but welcoming. Accusations of heresy erupted, tearing through my spirit like a storm. They called me deluded, a traitor to our faith, casting aside the very fabric of trust we had built over years. I felt their disappointment, their hurt, and it stabbed at my heart, deepening the guilt that was already consuming me. I had once been revered as a pillar in our community, yet now I stood as a pariah, an enemy to those I had once taught. The very foundation of my life felt as if it was crumbling beneath me, and I struggled to hold on to the truths bestowed upon me in my vision. Each day was a battle against despair, and the internal conflict raged on, while emotions of guilt and fear sought to anchor me back to the shadows. Something more profound urged me to stand firm. I felt the pull of the spiritual war that Jesus had revealed to me, the battle for the souls of men. I understood I had a responsibility to share the truth, even if it meant sacrificing my comfort and acceptance. The teachings of compassion and love that I had imparted to others began to echo in my mind, urging me to confront the very deception that had ensnared so many. It was a call to arms that I couldn't ignore. In moments of solitude, I found myself wrestling with doubt, questioning whether I was strong enough to pursue this path. The weight of their rejection felt like a cloak tightening around me, and I wondered if I had made a colossal mistake. Yet I could also hear whispers of encouragement in my heart, the stirring of an awakening that reminded me why the truth is worth fighting for. With every realization, I felt an intense urgency to reveal the hidden agendas at play in our society, the manipulation of information, the fear injected into our lives by the elite to control and divide us. The visions I witnessed sparked a fire within me, igniting a hunger to break free from the shackles of conformity. The more I studied and reflected on Jesus' message, the clearer it became that many of us were caught in an intricate web of deception, unable to see the broader implications of our reality. I felt an awakening emerging, not just in my heart, but rippling through the fabric of our community. As I navigated this turbulent landscape, I felt a glimmer of hope that perhaps there were others waiting for the same awakening, eager to embrace the truth, but afraid to challenge the status quo. There was a whisper growing louder, a call to unite against the deception that kept us divided. And deep down, I knew my journey was just beginning. Each conversation ignited sparks of possibility, urging me to keep pushing against the tide of opposition. I felt Jesus at my side, reassuring me that this was not a fight I would face alone. The awakening was not merely about me. It was a collective movement, one that could inspire others to rise and seek the truth. As the echoes of rejection mingled with newfound resolve, I understood the significance of this spiritual war. There was much to be done, and challenges lay ahead. I had to confront my fears head-on, share my revelations, and continue to advocate for the light that awaited us all. The road would be fraught with uncertainties, but the truth would always prevail against the darkness that sought to consume it. In the quiet of my home, I began to embark on a quest for truth that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Adopting a lifestyle of secrecy, I dove deep into the teachings of Jesus and the principles of Christianity, consuming videos and reading the Bible under the cover of darkness. It felt as though I was navigating a hidden path, illuminating the shadows of my prior beliefs with new understanding. Each verse resonated within me, striking chords I had long buried in fear, pain, and confusion. The more I learned, the more I felt the heavy chains of deception begin to fall away, revealing the vibrant truth I had yearned for. As I immersed myself in this new world, I discovered stories of others who had embarked on similar journeys. Hearing their testimonies provided unexpected solace, transforming my sense of isolation into a profound connection with a community that understood my struggles. Their stories mirrored my own awakening, tales of liberation from the very systems that sought to bind us. Amidst these revelations, however, fear gripped my heart. A fear of losing my family, my heritage, and the culture that shaped me. The thought of coming out into the light, of stepping away from the traditions I had honored my entire life, felt like a daunting abyss. In those moments when the fear threatened to choke the faith that was blossoming within me, I found myself praying sincerely for the first time. Each utterance felt like stepping into the unknown, a plea to Jesus for guidance and assurance, for courage to navigate the tumultuous waters ahead. I remember feeling a warmth envelop me, a sense of reassurance that resonated in my very bones. It was a feeling I had not experienced before, a gentle reminder that I was not alone. In those quiet prayers, I embraced Jesus fully, allowing hope to blossom amidst the turmoil. It was during this transformative time that I made the decision to be baptized, but I chose to do so quietly. The weight of my family's expectations and the potential fallout of choosing a different faith pressed heavily on my conscience. Yet the conviction in my heart grew undeniable, urging me to take this step towards my awakening, even if it was shrouded in secrecy. The water felt cool against my skin as I emerged, a symbol of new life and new beginnings, an act of defiance against the deception that had kept me trapped, but also a step towards a profound truth that could not be contained. As I stood in the cool embrace of that water, I could feel the pulse of a spiritual war unfolding all around me. Revelations danced in my mind like flickering flames, warning of the hidden agenda that sought to manipulate our lives, the systems designed by the elite to keep us divided and fearful. I realized this awakening wasn't merely about me. It was a clarion call to others, a summons to awaken from the bondage of ignorance that had blinded us for too long. The urgency surged through me, igniting a desire to reach out and share what I had discovered, to make my voice heard amidst the chaos of deception and division surrounding us. I could no longer remain silent, and I sensed that the journey ahead would demand everything I had. As I delved deeper into my faith after my baptism, an undeniable weight settled upon me. It was clear to me now that the revelations I had experienced held significance beyond my personal awakening. It felt as though I had been divinely commissioned for a purpose far greater than I had ever imagined. The spiritual war I had begun to understand was not just about my own transformation. It was a battle for the hearts and minds of countless others who remained ensnared in the web of deception. This knowledge flooded through me, igniting a fierce determination to enlighten those around me about the truths I had uncovered. In the quiet moments of reflection, I realized the gravity of my responsibility. The truths unveiled to me by Jesus were profound and urgent. They echoed the urgency of a world desperately in need of awakening. When I thought of the manipulation by the elite, how they wielded power to control narratives, suppressing the truth that could liberate souls, I felt a profound anger mingled with heartbreak. I knew I couldn't remain silent. I had to share the light that had pierced the darkness of my own life. The thought of others remaining in the chains of ignorance filled me with resolve, stirring something deep within, a calling to advocate for those unable to see the bigger picture. With each passing day, I sought opportunities to engage with individuals in my community. I would share my story, my journey of reluctant acceptance, and the divine encounter that had transformed my life. Some listened with curiosity, others dismissed me outright. I encountered skepticism, which sometimes felt like icy daggers piercing my heart. Yet I held firmly to the knowledge that transformation often begins with discomfort. I reminded myself that the spiritual war was fought not only on grand stages but in everyday conversations, in hearts that needed to be awakened to the truth, however gradually. As I reached out, I became increasingly aware of the resistance against these revelations. Many were content in their belief systems, unwilling to question the foundations they had built their lives upon. I understood the fear that gripped them, fear of losing the community, the cultural identity, deeply rooted in tradition. But I also sensed an undercurrent of longing. Beneath their reluctance, there was an undeniable desire for something more, a truth that transcends the limitations of dogma. Each conversation became a thread woven into the fabric of a much larger narrative, the narrative of awakening that I felt compelled to champion. This mission, however, wasn't without its toll. I often battled feelings of loneliness, grappling with the chasm that grew between myself and the world I once knew. Yet in those dark moments, I felt the presence of Jesus guiding me forward, whispering assurances of support amidst the chaos. I understood that the spiritual awakening I was advocating for wasn't only vital for others. It was a clarion call for my own continued evolution. The truths I sought to share required immense courage to confront, not only with others, but within myself. As the stakes rose, so did my resolve, igniting a hope that this journey, marked by struggle and uncertainty, would ultimately lead to liberation, not just for me, but for those roaming beneath the shadows of manipulation, waiting for the dawn of truth. As I stood at the crossroads of my life, the weight of my decisions settled heavily on my heart. The moment had come to abandon the familiar shadows of my past, my family, the walls that had embraced me for so long, and a community that now felt foreign. With each farewell, I felt a profound sorrow that pierced my soul. Leaving behind everything I had ever known filled me with dread. Yet an overwhelming sense of liberation surged within me, fueling my resolve. Moving to a new city marked a pivotal turn in my journey. The streets felt different, alive with possibility. Each passerby represented a soul yearning for truth, just as I had been. I could feel the pulse of the divine calling me to share my testimony, to spread the light I had encountered in my vision. This was not just a personal endeavor. It was a mission to enlighten those lost in the deceptions of life, those caught in the grips of a spiritual war they barely understood. I began to engage with anyone who would listen, eager to share what I had learned about the hidden agendas that manipulate our societies. The challenge was daunting, as the fear of rejection lingered in the back of my mind. I had faced condemnation before, but now I stood committed to a purpose that transcended my own discomfort. I recalled the truths revealed by Jesus. The urgency of awakening reminded me that many were trapped in cycles of division, unaware of the control exerted by the elite. I spoke passionately about the need for community and connection, encouraging individuals to question the narratives woven into the fabric of our society. Each encounter brought its own complexity. Some responded with openness, their eyes lighting up as they began to grasp the truths I shared. Others recoiled, resistant to the unsettling idea that their beliefs might be built upon layers of deception. I felt a mix of emotions. Our conversations often turned into gentle debates, yet I recognized that even the most skeptical were deserving of compassion and understanding. I found myself learning as much as I taught, and with every dialogue, the weight of my old life felt lighter. I was forging new connections, and with each bond formed, the daunting loneliness I had felt began to fade. As my journey continued, the initial sorrow of leaving my old life behind evolved into a profound sense of freedom. For the first time, I understood what it meant to live authentically, driven by the core convictions planted during my encounter with Jesus. Each day unfolded like a new canvas, an opportunity to paint over the old shadows with vibrant colors of hope and truth. But I also held close the hope of reconciliation. Deep in my heart, I wished for the day when my family might comprehend my choices and see the light I had found. Until that day came, I would press on, embracing this divine mission to awaken others and transcending the narratives that sought to bind us all. As I reflect on the journey that brought me here, one filled with profound revelations and agonizing choices, I realize that my encounter with Jesus was not only a personal awakening, it was a pivotal moment in a larger narrative. We are all interconnected in this intricate web of existence, spiraling together through the currents of a world that often feels dark and chaotic. Every choice we make, every truth we uncover, ripples outwards, reverberating through the lives of others. It begs the question, are we truly aware of the unseen forces shaping our beliefs and actions? Do we recognize the spiritual war that rages within us and around us? My story is just one thread in a vast tapestry of awakening. There are countless souls, perhaps you watching right now, who feel the stirring of something greater within, a thirst for truth that transcends tradition and dogma. This journey has ignited a fire within me, and I implore you, what truths lie dormant within your spirit that are waiting to be awakened? Have you ever experienced a moment where everything you thought you knew was called into question? I invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below, for each story is a beacon that contributes to our collective understanding. If my testimony stirred something within you, don't leave without subscribing to Truth from Beyond and hitting that notification bell. Your subscription is not just a click, it's a commitment to explore the deeper layers of reality together, a declaration that you are ready to seek truth amidst the shadows. What lies ahead in our journey is even more astonishing. We are on the cusp of uncovering insights that can reshape how we perceive our purpose in this world. In our next video, prepare to dive deeper as we hear from another soul who experienced a transformative encounter with the divine, a journey that challenges us to rise above the constraints of our circumstances. I'm Hamza, and I thank you for being here, for daring to question, and for standing with me in this pursuit of truth. Remember, the journey to awakening does not end here. It begins anew with every step we take together.